So if you watched my previous video about Trump exposing South Africa, then buckle up because we are getting a sequel that nobody asked for, but absolutely everybody needed. This is like when a terrible movie somehow gets a part 2, no one wanted it, except this time the people are surprised because it's actually way more entertaining and based entirely in reality. Donald Trump just announced that the United States will officially boycott the upcoming G20 summit in South Africa. And honestly, as a reasoning South African who doesn't make decisions based on emotion or emotional blackmail, the man has a point. I know that's going to make some people absolutely lose their minds, but hear me out before you start typing furious comments like Summer's glasses are artificial and he doesn't need them. Trump called it a total disgrace that South Africa is hosting the G20 and stated that absolutely no US government officials will attend the summit scheduled for November 22nd to the 23rd in Johannesburg. Even Vice President J.D. Vance, who was originally expected to be the one to attend, will no longer be traveling to South Africa. This isn't just Trump throwing a tantrum on social media. This is a complete diplomatic shutdown. Now let's talk about why this is happening, because the reasons are very wild and simultaneously completely predictable if you've been paying attention to South Africa's trajectory over the past few years. And if you were wondering, yes, I am sick. The tensions escalated after President Cyril Ramaphosa introduced new legislation in January seeking to address land ownership disparities, making it easier for the state to expropriate land. Now, I know what you're thinking. But the legacy of apartheid, summer colonialism, and historical injustice, EWC, has to happen. And yes, those are real issues, but here's the thing. Taking land without proper compensation isn't solving inequality. You want to know what it's doing? It's speedrunning Zimbabwe's economic collapse, any percentage glitchless. We literally watched this exact playbook destroy Zimbabwe's agricultural sector. Robert Mugabe did the same thing. And somehow, Zimbabwe went from being the breadbasket of Africa to a country that can't even feed itself. It's like watching someone step on a landmine, explode, and then going, yeah, I'm going to walk right there too. The economic illiteracy is actually very impressive. But here's where it gets spicy. 225 people were victims of crime on farms in South Africa, with 53 of the victims being farmers, mostly white, from 2020 to 2024. Now, South Africa's government loves to downplay this and say, well, crime affects everyone, which is technically true, but completely misses the point. Farm murders aren't just regular crime. They're often brutal, targeted attacks that involve torture and extreme violence. The government's response to this has been essentially, oh, it's fine, don't worry about it, while simultaneously pushing land expropriation policies. That's like your house being on fire, and the firefighters are showing up with gasoline. The cognitive dissonance is chef's kiss levels of bad. And let's not even get started on the corruption. State capture, tender fraud, Eskom being looted into oblivion, municipalities that can't even provide basic services because the money mysteriously disappeared. South Africa has turned corruption into an Olympic sport, and we're going for gold every single time. We're breaking records out here. Trump issued an order earlier this year condemning South Africa's shocking disregard of its citizens' rights and said the US, therefore, shall not provide aid or assistance to South Africa. And you know what? When America, a country with its own significant problems, is calling you out on human rights, maybe it is time for some self-reflection. South Africa has some of the highest rates of gender-based violence in the world. Women are murdered by intimate partners at rates that would make war zones blush. The homicide statistics are so bad, they're actually more terrifying than some war zones. And what is the government doing about it? Mostly issuing statements and holding summits while the problem gets progressively worse, or absolutely nothing. This isn't emotional blackmail, these are just facts. Cold, hard, uncomfortable facts that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge because it's easier to scream racism or colonialism than to actually address these problems. The ANC Secretary General called Trump's statements false, labeling them as imperialist interference. Because of course they did. The standard South African government playbook: deny, deflect, blame apartheid, blame colonialism, blame anyone except the people currently in charge, who have been in charge for 30 years, just like a deadbeat father. South Africa's foreign ministry called Trump's comments regrettable and said the characterization of Afrikaners as exclusively white is ahistorical, and that claims of persecution are not substantiated by fact, which is a fascinating response considering the literal legislation they just passed about land expropriation and the documented farm attacks. But hey, I'm just a YouTuber. It's like if your neighbor complained about your dog attacking people and you responded with, well, actually, dog is a problematic term and your characterization is ahistorical. Like, okay, but the dog is still biting people, my friend. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Trump is calling out real problems that South Africans deal with every single day. Land expropriation without compensation, farm murders, gender-based violence, corruption, so endemic it's practically part of the national identity. Because these aren't just made-up issues. These are things that affect millions of South Africans. They affect you watching this in some way. The fact that it takes a controversial American president to actually highlight these issues on the world stage is genuinely embarrassing for South Africa. I know, I can still sing even though I'm sick. But that's a story for another day. The fact that farmers are being murdered, women are being killed at astronomical rates, drugs are being sold to our kids, corruption is destroying the country's future, that should be more than enough of a problem for South Africa to address. And as a reasoning South African, I'm not making this statement based on tribal loyalty or any political party. I'm looking at the objective reality of what's really happening in this country as a South African. And the reality is that South Africa is speedrunning failed state status while the government insists everything is fine, and anyone who says otherwise is a racist imperialist. I mean, I'm not saying this all the way from another country, a South African who lives here and works every day. I can tell you, 98% of what Trump says is actually true. I mean, getting an opportunity to showcase ourselves on the world stage and then spectacularly fumbling it because we can't be honest and we can't get our house in order, that's very South African if you ask me. But what do you guys think? Am I completely off base here? Or is Trump actually calling out legitimate problems that South Africa refuses to address? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I am genuinely very curious about what people think about this specific situation, because it's not as black and white as an either side. It's not as like black and white people want you to think it is. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, tell me what you think. I'm sorry if I'm stuttering a lot. Like, I feel like absolute garbage. I feel like someone's been punching my face 1,000 times and I'm lying there in the corner, I'm rocky. And then you have the coach at the corner saying, get up, champ. Get up and go knock his block off. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel really bad right now. Physically, not emotionally. Like, I feel like my head is about to escape my skull. I can't even begin to tell you how I feel, but I know my skin is so perfect. You can't even see that I'm sick. Maybe my eyes give it away. Oh well. I'll see you next time. Tell me what you think.